Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three martinis coming up.
Hey, we made it to the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. That's a good martini in and of itself, but we actually have two good martinis for real for you today, as well as a bad one to wrap out the week. And Jim, let's talk about our good martini. And this is one that we could probably see coming more than 2 years ago, but we had to put up with the histrionics of President Biden, Stacey Abrams, corporate America, a bunch of celebs, because it was in early 2021, after the 2020 elections, where Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, were not exactly on Donald Trump's good side. They decided to strengthen the voting system, make it easier to vote, harder to cheat. And that included voter IDs and some other things that you couldn't do in terms of electioneering in line and so forth. But that was considered racist and voter suppression by all the people the mainstream media love to give credibility to, including we had Joe Biden going all the way down to Georgia to compare people supportive of this law to the worst people in the segregation era and even the slavery era.
So I ask every elected official in America, how do you want to be remembered? At consequential moments in history, they present a choice. Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis?
So no hyperbole there, of course, comparing Georgia voting laws to the Confederate president, George Wallace, Bull Connor. And one of the things that happened there is that Major League Baseball said, well, if Georgia's doing this, we're not hosting the All-Star game this year. And they ended up sending it out to Colorado because of what the Georgia lawmakers and governor had done. Well, nothing's changed with the laws. People have moved on to other stuff. Turns out the elections have gone very well there. More people have voted, record numbers. Stacey Abrams still not winning, so everything looks good. And Major League Baseball is just going to pretend now that nothing happened in 2021 by announcing yesterday that the 2025 All-Star game and the accompanying All-Star Week events have been awarded to the Braves. The third time Atlanta will host the Midsummer Classic. Do we need an asterisk next to that one? The Braves, probably being smart here, not referring to what happened 2 years ago, but looking forward to it. Brian Kemp, though, doing a victory lap. His tweet, Georgia's voting laws haven't changed, but it's good to see the MLB's misguided understanding of them has. We look forward to welcoming the All-Star game to Georgia. Go Braves. So, Jim, I mean, it's a win that people have now seen that these voting laws are not draconian. They're not voter suppression. They're actually smart ways to make sure that they get the most accurate vote count possible with the best turnout possible for people who should actually vote. And the fact that MLB is quietly bringing the All-Star game back to Georgia is proof of the victory. I'd like a full-throated apology, but this is probably as good as we're going to get.
You know, Greg, I had thought about whether this counts as a good martini. Ultimately, argued that this should be counted. I can understand somebody, grinding their teeth and saying, darn it, they never should have lost the All-Star game. This was always an unfair smear. Okay, yeah, I get that. But I was thinking about how do you see and how do you measure a win in politics? And we get to see it in elections. Your guy wins the race, the other guy doesn't. You feel like, okay, that's a win. You can have a big win at the Supreme Court, a big decision that goes your way. And then I think sometimes you see other types of wins in other ways that aren't necessarily easy to measure. But I think it's safe to say that Bud Light is not having a good year, and the choice of a transgender social media influencer did not work out well for them, and that there was a big backlash. People said, we're sick of this, just stop, coupled with the comments of that woman. So you look at sometimes you get something like this. And think about it, a good chunk of 2021, President Biden and a whole bunch of Democrats tried to make the argument that the voting changes enacted in the state of Georgia were racist, that they were they were worse than Jim Crow. Joe Biden emphasized them. Jim Eagle, whatever the hell that meant.
Yes.
And not only did they not persuade the rest of the country that Georgia had done something terrible, or at least they didn't persuade, they persuaded Manfred and some people at MLB, but they did not persuade the broader electorate. They didn't persuade Georgia voters who, did not kick out Brian Kemp on his keister. They didn't even persuade African-American voters that this was something unjust because, as we saw in that survey, 0% of African Americans said they had a bad experience in their voting experience in Georgia in the 2022 midterms. Kemp and those who passed this law were entirely vindicated. There is no indication of voter suppression. There is no indication of any suppression of turnout. In fact, turnout was higher. It's about as solid as you can get. And now Major League Baseball kind of has to come back hat in hand and say, hey, can we have the All-Star game then? So yeah, I would love to see an apology. I would love to see somebody come out and say, okay, these, in fact, were not racist changes to the law at all. These were not changes that were designed to reduce turnout. Turnout is higher. We were totally, yeah, I'd love to see that, but you're never going to get to see that. So this is about as close as we're going to get to seeing something like that, where the entire Democratic Party just has to basically pretend that they didn't spend a year and 2 years demonizing this voting change and insisting it was the worst thing ever, when in fact the evidence indicates it was a perfectly fine change to the voting laws.
No, well said. And, you look at the NFL, MLB, and NBA, they've got pretty lefty commissioners, and it's exhausting to people. In addition to the ESPN politicizing of sports, you've got Adam Silver refusing to stand up to China with the NBA. Roger Goodell rolls over for basically every social cause that the left wants him to, and MLB did it here. So I guess minor kudos to Rob Manfred, but like you said, you'll take the wins where you can get them. But the leadership in major sports is not the most courageous, let's put it that way.
Greg, if you're a really incompetent commissioner of, say, the NFL, people keep watching. People keep watching the Super Bowl, and the audiences are still really high, and the advertisers keep paying, and people keep paying. In a way, running a sports league is really one of the safest jobs you could possibly have, because you really have to screw up on a massive level before people start, not showing up to the games and not paying tickets and not buying the paraphernalia and all that stuff. So, if you did this and you were running a mid-size, widget company, your mistakes would probably catch up with you. So really, in a way, these commissioners, it's good for them that they ended up in a job where the consequences of their mistakes are so small.
Yeah, nobody can resist when their local team is good. But, if Daniel Snyder became a commissioner, given how he ran the Redskins into the ground, maybe he could destroy an entire league. He'll never get that chance, thankfully. But
think about it, it took him decades to run the Redskins / Commanders into the ground. So.
Yes. Thankfully, he'll never have the chance. All right, quick pause to tell you about our fantastic sponsor for the day, and that is 4Patriots, makers of many outstanding products, including the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. Now new and improved, it's a solar generator charging more devices for longer in a blackout, with double the capacity and more peak power than before. Plus, new expandable capability for even more power. Just got power coming out of its ears. You can also take it camping or on picnics. It's very portable. And most importantly, when your power goes out, you can be ready. Use that solar panel that it comes with to make the generator fully ready to power your fridge, your freezer, your medical devices, and a whole lot more. Never needs gas. Fume-free, silent, and safe. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Visit 4patriots.com/martini to see this week's discounts and deals before they are gone, and to get free shipping on orders over $97. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's the number 4patriots.com/martini. All right, on to our second good martini now, Jim. And one of the things you often hear in an NFL game or college football is, upon further review, the call stands, the call is confirmed, the call is reversed, whatever it is. When it comes to election results now, it's been about a week and a half since we got the results in Virginia, and the overall big picture has not changed. Democrats did hold the Senate, as we reported, and they did flip the House. But if you look a little bit closer at a couple of important things, conservatives did better than we thought at first blush. Daily Signal with the story specifically about what happened in Loudoun County. Now, if you go back to 2021, when Glenn Youngkin won, a couple of things really helped him in the final months. One was Terry McAuliffe, of course, saying that parents should have no business telling schools what their kids should be learning. That went over really well. Glenn Youngkin definitely capitalized on that. But at the same time that was happening, you had school boards in Northern Virginia telling parents to buzz off when it came to gender expression and critical race theory and that sort of thing. And then I believe it was Daily Wire that reported on something in Loudoun County where a girl was sexually assaulted in a high school bathroom by a biological male who presented himself as a female. And the school covered it up, no charges against the male. And when the father went ballistic, the father of the girl, they had him arrested. And so then the local Soros-backed prosecutor, Buddha Bibarai, decided to prosecute the dad here. And that got everybody lit up big time. Oh, by the way, the attacker got sent to another school where the same thing happened. So as of this election day, Buddha Bibarai, the prosecutor, was actually defeated in a big surprise. They thought if she was going to lose this year, it would happen in the primary, and she didn't lose in the primary. But it was a very close race, but she has now finally conceded. And everyone who was on that school board is gone, either defeated, retired, resigned, whatever. The former superintendent, of course, facing prosecution and conviction. So, Jim, it's been an ugly fight. Not every battle gets won this clearly, and we'll see how the next round of people do as Commonwealth attorney and school board members in that county. But for a lot of people who did their constituents wrong a couple of years ago, the reckoning has come, and that's good news.
Indeed, Greg. I don't think it's downplaying the importance of the issue of education and the performance of our schools to say that education was a, for lack of a better term, hotter, more intensely passionate issue in the minds of most of the electorate and the minds of most parents back in 2021 than it was in 2023. Some of it's economic issues, some of it's Democrats running the abortion issue campaigns. But really, I think what we see from these examples is that if you want to run on the issue of education, it's not enough to say, I'm going to hold our school leaders accountable. I think that you need, ideally, a vivid and specific episode somewhere in your district, ideally in your community, where you can say, here's where the school board screwed up. Here's where the school board excused the inexcusable, tried to sweep something under the rug. Here's a case where the school did not protect kids the way they're obligated to. And that resonates with people. That gets people fired up. I think there's a lot, there's a tendency to speak in a shorthand that doesn't always grab people. And the fact that we saw these swings in these races is a demonstration that when you speak to people with that clarity, with that, self-evident real-world consequences, people sit up and take notice. And the other point, you mentioned at the beginning of the fact that Democrats, as of this recording, and I think there's one recount that might be ongoing, but it looks like both chambers are a 1-seat difference. Democrats have a 21-19 majority in the Virginia State Senate and a 51-49 majority in the State House. There's one race that's going to a recount. Republican is currently leading that one by 78 votes. So I went back and I checked, and in the 30th State Senate District, if there were 2,260 people who voted for the Republican would have won, the chamber would be tied, and Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears would be breaking the ties for the next 2 years. If it had in this 31st district, 5,067 more people had voted for the Republicans would have a 1-seat majority. If both of those happened, Republicans would control the chamber. Narrowly, but they'd control it. Very similar story in the Virginia House, 97th House District. The Republican candidate needed 1,180 more people to vote for her. That one was Karen Greenhall. And in the 65th House District, Republican Lee Peters needed 1,751. So you add that up, 7,321 votes in 2 districts. Republicans could have had a Senate majority. And 2,931 more votes in 2 House districts, they could have had a House majority. This is out of 2.3 million votes were cast statewide. So it was close. It was painfully close. It's really, really frustrating when you lose the close ones. But I don't think you can point to that as a stinging rebuke of Republicans or as some sort of colossal failure on their part. My colleague Ramesh Ponnur writes in the Washington Post today that you look at the numbers, you can make a very strong case that the Youngkin position on abortion actually helped Republicans in a whole bunch of districts that Joe Biden had won by a very wide margin.
Well, I certainly hope that's the case. I guess the counter argument to that would probably be, given Biden's unpopularity and how national politics intertwine with Virginia politics, that the conditions should have been ripe for Republicans to actually get over the hump in these races by at least a mild, if not a comfortable margin. But to know that it wasn't the wipeout that a lot of people would like to make it to be is good news. And I don't know what it's going to look like on the national level. It wasn't great for Republicans in the midterms in 2022. And I don't know how it'll look in 2024. But as a result of these elections and the ones 2 years ago statewide on the state level, it's more of a battleground state than I thought it was. And let's hope it continues that way. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now. And for that, we go to Elon Musk over at X. And one of the things we could actually, appreciate about Elon Musk is that you find a lot more stuff on what used to be Twitter that you won't find disseminated as much on other sites. Sometimes it has to do with hot button social issues when it comes to things related to the Hamas attack on Israel and some of these really hideous protests on college campuses in favor of the Palestinians or even Hamas. You'll find that on X more than you will in other places. But Elon Musk has really stepped in it here, and you chronicle this well in the Morning Jolt today. This all goes back to an Anti-Defamation League ad that shows kind of a middle-aged white dad and his teenage son who's been posting anti-Semitic things online. And they pull up to a synagogue as the congregation is coming out. And he says, if you really feel that way, go tell it to their face. Don't hide behind your screen name or your computer. And so the message hits home, obviously. Now, the backlash to this ad is that, what's happening right now with the backlash towards Jews and Israel, a lot of this is happening on college campuses, and it's certainly not a monolithic white argument. And so that led to this guy who's got like 5,000 followers responding to the ad saying, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest crap now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face? There it is. Now, that wasn't what Musk said. Musk replied to that and said, you have said the actual truth. Jim, you have had time to think about this quite extensively. You wrote about it extensively today. What's your big takeaway?
Greg, there are times when I am very appreciative of the fact that Elon Musk is just thinks of himself as a champion of free speech. And, I don't necessarily mind that someone, given the choice between shutting down what's perceived as hate speech as quickly as possible and erring on the side of free speech and saying there's a lot of speech out there that's objectionable, there's a lot of speech out there that's ugly, that I'm going to, do my part. And that ultimately, this ultimately stems back from an ongoing fight between Elon Musk and the Anti-Defamation League. Elon Musk buys Twitter. The Anti-Defamation League says that there's all kinds of anti-Semitic hate speech flourishing. Musk says we're shutting it down. ADL says, no, according to our numbers, you're not. And it goes out of that. And Elon Musk feels like he's been unfairly accused of being anti-Semitic. And I can sympathize with that. Everybody hates being falsely accused. I think good people, good, smart, well-meaning people can differ on where you draw the line and when a particular comment becomes unacceptable and should be taken down. But what Elon Musk is doing in this particular case is responding to some guy who makes this assertion: Jewish communities, and by the way, he misspelled communities, have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people stop using against them. Do Jewish communities push hatred against whites? Is that a fair accusation? Is that a fair assertion? I don't think so. I suppose you could find somebody out. You probably find, look, there are 8 million or roughly 8 million Jews in this country. You could probably find somebody out there who fits that description. But is it fair to say Jews do this? No, I don't think so. And if you run around saying, well, Jews promote hatred of whites, well, what do you think is going to happen? Right? There are certain whites who will hear that and say, well, I guess I hate Jews too. When he says, Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country, this is a gripe about immigration. This is a gripe about, I presume, open borders. This is a gripe about who gets allowed into this country. And, you and I have very strong views on this. We've expressed this on this podcast a lot of times. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who disagree with us. I'm sure there's a decent number of Jewish people out there who disagree with us. That doesn't mean we don't care about anti-Semitism. This doesn't mean that these people have it coming or that it's justified or something like that. And when this schmuck goes out there and says, I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest crap now, he didn't use crap, as listeners probably gathered. He used the S word. Well, maybe you should give the tiniest poop about this. I think the history's got plenty of examples. Jews often get described as, canaries in the coal mine. When you see a society in which anti-Semitism is flourishing, bad things follow. Hatred of other minorities, hatred of anybody, all kinds of lashing out, scapegoating, right? Runaway, thugs in the streets, right? This is not, a vague, rumored possibility. We've seen this happen in history over and over again. So, I would kind of put it to Elon Musk. I'm not begrudging you having a beef with the ADL. Maybe maybe they really have falsely accused it. But if you run around saying Jews think this and Jews think that, people start to think you're anti-Semitic. This is exactly the wrong way to dispel the notion that you are anti-Semitic. And so I know it's just a tweet. He just kind of, may not have thought about it that much. But like when you do these things, people do not look at you all that sympathetically. And it just, it comes across as callous. It comes across as very blasé about the wave of anti-Semitism that we've seen from coast to coast in the cities, on college campuses, etc. Musk may be an exceptionally smart guy who can launch rockets and design cool cars and all that stuff. But when he does stuff like this very smart guy does not seem very wise.
No, another thing he posted yesterday, of course, was his big handshake with Xi Jinping. He does a ton of business in China, and so he tries to keep that quiet to some extent. But, I think this goes back to don't make politicians, don't make pop culture figures your heroes. They're always going to disappoint you, right? So, appreciate them when they get stuff right, especially when it takes some boldness and courage and sacrifice, and it takes some slings and arrows. And when they get it wrong, say that too. But to be so emotionally invested that you feel like you have to defend someone at every turn, or you think they're like, lowercase savior of the country, take a step back. If you have good parents, idolize them. Obviously, the only one who's not going to let you down is God. So take it in proportion, people. These people that you try to constantly put on a pedestal and then feel like you have to defend, you're going to end up frustrated a lot of times. That's my little NBC "the more you know" statement for today. That's right. Anyway, Jim, there goes the week. And, we can head into the weekend, watch some NFL games before we head into the holiday week. We should point out that we will not have a show next week on Thanksgiving Day. We will have a couple of special shows since we're both going to be traveling for Thanksgiving. We're going to have our traditional What We're Politically Thankful For episode on Wednesday. And then on Friday, it's our Black Friday special, political gifts that we want to get for various political figures. So in the meantime, enjoy your games this weekend, and maybe you can trust your sideline reporter, because, there's a big controversy now about Carissa Thompson from Fox saying she made them up when she didn't have a chance to talk to coaches. So the whole sideline reporter industry is in disarray today. I hope America can survive.
Greg, I don't know about you, but I am shocked to find out that when he came out of the locker room, the head coach didn't actually say, we need to get off the field on third down and convert more when we're on offense. How could that possibly be?
I would actually get rid of coach interviews, especially the ones going into halftime. Neither of them want to do it. The winning coach is a little bit more in a good mood. The losing coach just wants to get off the field, and Nick Saban's never happy to see you. So, it's just kind of a worthless thing. Talk to the assistants, get your report, but grabbing the head coach, and even during games sometimes, ludicrous.
If you ever get a chance, Dana Carvey once did a terrific, stand-up routine, not a sketch on Saturday Night Live, but he was doing stand-up, and he did a routine about the interview with the losing coach. And it is very, very profane. And the idea is that he begins saying all that, well, you got to give credit to the other team. They played all the right. And then he just bursts into the most, furious, angry, sore loser, rage you'd ever imagine. And I always figure there's always a chance that someday that will happen. So maybe there's just a good point of, hey, coach, do you have anything you want to say to your players on the way out? No, you stink. I drew up a perfect game plan, and all of you loused it up. This loss is on this team, not on the coaching staff, not on me. I had a perfect plan to win, but these guys, they screwed it up.
Exactly. Maybe they just need to assign Carissa Thompson to Patriots games now, because all you're going to get from Belichick anyway is, and then he'll move on. So
we're on to Cincinnati.
Got to play better. Anyway, Jim.
Yeah, got to get it done. Just didn't get it done today.
On that note, have a great weekend. See you Monday.
See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us on X. He is at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific weekend and join us again Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.